All right, so we are back with the week 2 running back rankings and tiers. As promised, this video should be a little bit tighter, a little bit more concise and to the point, because it'll be my second time doing it now. Biggest thing to keep in mind for week 2 is every week that I get more tape and that I get more data on these defenses, these matchups, and my projections will be more and more on point as we go. It really just does take more than week 1 or week 2 because we don't know exactly what the defenses are going to do, and we don't know exactly how the offenses are going to look, and exactly how much usage every player is going to have. So going into the rankings. All right, so hopping into the rankings at number 1, I have CMC's going up against the Saints. Their run defense is not going to be that great. Not going to be a super high scoring game. Brock Purdy's going to miss. He's going to have to carry the ball a bajillion times. I feel like it's safe to say he won't be as involved in the passing game with Mac Jones, just because I don't know how Mac Jones is going to play, but he's going to run the ball a lot. Next for me is going to be Derrick Henry. He's going to end up being a top 5, a top 10 guy every single week. So is CMC, so is Bijan. It's just going to be one of those things. But at number 3, I have Josh Jacobs, a little bit higher than I had him last week, a little bit higher than he performed last week. I have faith in him being this high. I'm anticipating the Commanders-Packers game to be a very high-scoring game. I think this could be a possible NFC Championship game preview. So I just see the fireworks coming into this game. He'll be very involved in the run game, slightly involved in the passing game, and I think he'll have a touchdown in this game as well. Next at number 4, I have Bijan Robinson. The biggest issue that I have for Bijan this week is going up against the Vikings. If he wasn't going up against the Vikings, it was somebody else a little more cupcakey like last week, I'd have him as number 2, number 3. But with that Vikings run defense, I think it's going to be a lot better in week 2. Obviously, it stymied DeAndre Swift. When it comes to Bijan Robinson, DeAndre Swift, pretty big talent gap there, but still, it's going to be better. So I don't know how many points are going to be scored in this game. It could be a lower scoring game. We'll have to wait and see. But again, easily a guy you're starting every single week, no matter what, unless the bye week. But rankings, right? So next for me at number 5, I have Saquon Barkley going up against the Chiefs run defense. May not be the highest of scoring games. I think he'll obviously be involved quite a bit. The Chiefs, like I said, though, do have a good run defense. So we'll see how that turns out for him in week 2. But again, just somebody you have to start every week no matter what. Next for me is James Cook. He popped off in week 1, so this isn't an overreaction. It is just the fact that the Jets defense gave up a lot of points in week 1 to the Pittsburgh Steelers, who I do not think are as talented or even close to as talented of an offensive unit as the Buffalo Bills. Probably will end up being a high-scoring game or a decently high-scoring game in week 2. He has a lot of touchdown equity in this offense, so I think he's a safe play here because of what we saw in week 1. At number 7, I have Devon Achane. He's pretty much the only shining light for the Miami Dolphins offense in week 1 or period at this point in time. Going up against the Patriots this week, the Patriots defense could look pretty dang good in week 2, depending on how bad the Dolphins look in week 2. I'm hopeful that Mike McDaniels gets this figured out very quickly for his team's sake and his job's sake. He'll pretty much be a top 12 guy pretty much every single week unless they're going up against like a top 5 pass defense against running backs or a top 5 run defense and a pretty decent pass. It's got to be a pretty good defense for him not to be ranked top 12. Anyways, next person for me is going to be Jahmyr Gibbs. As far as Jahmyr Gibbs goes and this Lions team as a whole, I think they're going to bounce back heavily in week 2. The offensive line will be more in sorts. Jared Goff's going to play better. This offense is going to be better as a whole. Dan Campbell is not letting this team just bottom out and tank in week 2. It's not going to happen. So what that means for Jahmyr Gibbs, he's going to bounce back, be a top 12 guy this week. It's not going to be probably the craziest of high scoring games, but I just think you're going to see everything Dan Campbell has against Ben Johnson in week 2. At number 9 for me, I have Kyren Williams going up against the Titans this week. Their run defense might not be too bad with their front 4. Probably won't be the highest scoring game, so they'll probably try and salt the game away with Kyren Williams in the 3rd, maybe 4th quarter. From there, we're going to be looking at Chase Brown next. Wasn't too impressed with the Bengals overall in week 1, but it is September, and they don't play well in September. So I think this entire Bengals offense, much like the Lions offense, is going to bounce back in week 2. Going up against the Jags, don't have that great of a defense, so I think Chase Brown's going to pop off, and Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, the whole team's going to play better in week 2. So just inside the RB1 range for me, I have James Conner for the Cardinals. They're going up against the Panthers. Panthers just gave up a bajillion yards to Travis Etienne, who everybody thought was washed. I just think that there's a pretty dang good reality that James Conner, Trey Benson, and Kyler Murray get there this week by running the football, because I don't think the Panthers have the defensive personnel to stop the run again this season. Probably a matchup you're going to look to exploit every single week. I think James Conner is going to be in a smash spot in week 2. Next for me is Chuba Hubbard, who's on the other side of this. If it is a lower scoring game, that means that they're not going to have to pass the ball a lot too much for Carolina either. He should be able to run the ball quite a bit, get a decent amount of touches. Hopefully he stays involved somewhat in the passing game in week 2 as well, and it doesn't go more and more to Rico in the following weeks. Up next, I have Bucky Irving at RB13. This Texans defense is going to look a lot better in week 2 by my estimations, but again, same thing like for everybody else. He's just the main ball carrier on this team. A lot of touchdown upside and equity on this team for the Bucks. We'll see how good the Texans front four and run stopping unit is in week 2. Kyren didn't look that great in week 1, but we'll see how it looks throughout the season. Again, it's kind of hard to know what we're going to get out of these offenses, out of these defenses week over week over week until we get past the first few weeks. Next for me is Jonathan Taylor. He looked really good in the beginning of the game. I'm not sure if he's going to be coming into this with like a true injury designation. The other biggest concern I have this week for him is going up against the Denver Broncos. Nick Bonito and that front four for the Broncos looks fantastic. Don't know how effectively they're going to be able to run the ball. My hope for him and why I still have him as a high-end RB2 in week 2 is they're going to pass the ball quite a bit with Daniel Jones. So I'm hoping spreading that ball around kind of opens up the field a little bit for Jonathan Taylor in the run game and underneath in the pass game. At RB15, I have Alvin Kamara. Until we see Spencer Rattler really get it going in the passing game and getting the ball pushed down the field to Chris Olave and Rashid Shaheed, Alvin Kamara is going to be an RB2, fringe RB1 until that point in time, as long as he stays healthy. The matchup against the Seahawks isn't my favorite. Their defense is going to probably look a lot better in week 2 as they get it more and more dialed in. But Spencer Rattler's got to have a safety blanket. Someone has to run the ball for this team. Kendra Miller didn't look that great, so Alvin Kamara is basically probably a little too high, but it's also I can't move him down too much lower, so this is where I have him. So next for me is Breece Hall. Obviously, I have him up quite a bit from last week. I did like what I saw on tape against the Steelers. I said during the game, I was like, I thought the Steelers were going to have a, top 5 run defense. That's not how it looked in week 1. It'll be interesting to see how he plays in week 2. If that explosiveness and juice and usage is still there, he's definitely going to finish probably a lot higher than this. The Bills defense looked crazily suspect against the Ravens, especially in the run game with Derrick Henry. Obviously, Breece Hall is not Derrick Henry, but if he can have a similar level-ish of success in week 2, he'll definitely finish as a high-end RB2 at a minimum for this coming week. So next for me, I have Travis Etienne with the Tank Bigsby trade to the Eagles. It's like, well, it's Travis Etienne. Maybe Bashal Tutin pops off later in the year. Who knows? We'll have to monitor that as we go. Matchup-wise, for Etienne in week 2, looks pretty decent. Should be a pretty high-scoring game. He is involved in the passing game. So playing against the Bengals this week, I think he's going to be in a good spot to be a middling RB2 for you this week. We'll see how it plays out, though. Hopefully it stays similar, so maybe you can have got like a smash guy later in our drafts, but we'll see what's happening in week 2. So the next for me, I have Javonte Williams. The touchdown production in week 1 carried his production in week 1, so it's kind of suspect for me. I have a really hard time putting him as an RB1 or doing anything overreacting like that. His yards per carry weren't that great. He really didn't take over like the workhorse back role for this team. He is viable in week 2, especially if he has some touchdown equity running the football for this team. If they're on the goal line or at short yardage, he very well could just be the guy who runs the football for them and has just enough juice to score touchdowns. Maybe not every week, but pretty consistently. We'll have to see what happens in week 2. I don't want to have him way too low. I don't want to have him way too high. So I feel like kind of in the middle of an RB2 range is fair enough for me. Next for me at RB19, I have Ashton Jeanty. I don't know how I feel about it, right? Don't want to overreact to week 1, and I'm not going to overreact to week 1 with Ashton Jeanty because I think he's a talented guy. Didn't look too explosive, but that could be more of a testament to the Raiders' offensive line not being that good. Hopefully he looks better in week 2. Aaron Jones. This is kind of a hedgy one too. This is where I start to feel a little yucky about my rankings, right? Because Aaron Jones for me, he should not be the primary ball carrier for this football team. He shouldn't even have 50% of this backfield. It really should be a 70-30, 60-40 at best split. Jordan Mason should be the first and second down back. I get he's not really involved in the passing game. That's fine. You could have Aaron Jones be the passing down back, third down back, fill in, change of pace back. Jordan Mason eventually this season is going to pop off, and him and Aaron Jones will flip-flop in my rankings dramatically so. But until that point in time, they're going to keep this 50-50 split. Kevin O'Connell will see it eventually. And yeah, till then, Aaron Jones is going to be kind of a middling RB2. Next for me, I have Tony Pollard. The biggest thing for Tony Pollard wasn't anything too crazy in week 1, but he did play against the Denver Broncos. So you got to think about that as well. The Rams front four is pretty good though, so it'll be kind of a hard matchup again for him this week. It's really going to come down to the production of Cam Ward. I am hopeful that Cam Ward takes a step up in week 2 against an easier Rams defense, especially comparing it to the Broncos defense. All right, so next for me, I have Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, JCM maybe, or Bill, I guess. He looked good in week 1. We'll see what he looks like in week 2. I hope he gets more usage, more carries, a little bit more involved in the passing game, especially if he's the number 1 RB on a team that's going to be a top 10 scoring offense in the NFL. Let's see what happens. I have him as an RB2 just because I think the matchup this week is going to be good. It's going to be a high scoring game against the Packers. So next for me is TreVeyon Henderson. Part of this is the talent's there. I think Mike Vrabel is going to see he needs to give him the ball more, pass game more, everything more. And number 2, the Dolphins defense looked like cheeks in week 1. I don't think that's going to change very much throughout the season. So I think TreVeyon Henderson is in a spot to have a pretty good week 2. I know it's probably higher than I probably should have him. He is somebody this week that I will actually be starting in my flex. I just think this matchup is too juicy for me to pass up. It could be a game where he just explodes. He could also do nothing, kind of like last week, not be anything too important in fantasy. But I'm hopeful this is the week because of the matchup. He looks really, really good. Rounding out the RB2s, I have J.K. Dobbins. J.K. Dobbins look kind of explosive. He's going to clearly have some level of touchdown equity on this team. Obviously, it wasn't a goal line carry, but he still has some of that juice and explosiveness. If you have him on your team, on your roster, you probably want to get your usage out of him early before he gets injured, slows down, doesn't look as efficient, or before Sean Payton says, you know what, this RJ Harvey guy looks pretty good and we want to use him more often. Next up for me, I have DeAndre Swift. And again, we're starting to get more and more into the grosser and grosser running backs. For DeAndre Swift, he's the number 1 RB for Ben Johnson. I just hope it looks better in week 2. We'll see if the Bears are able to create some running lanes for him and if Ben Johnson is able to scheme him up a little bit more in the run game in week 2 against the Lions. I think this will probably be one of the best offensive outputs we see from Ben Johnson, putting everything he has to go up against Dan Campbell. So if there was a week for DeAndre Swift to be a decent flex option, it would probably be this week, just because of the matchup, or maybe the next time they play each other, whenever that is. All right, so there are my RB tiers and rankings for week 2 in fantasy football. If you are wanting to see some QB and tight end rankings for week 2, I will have that video down here. Just posted it yesterday. Had some spicy people in there at the QB and tight end position, especially at QB. So hopefully that video helps you guys as well. Hopefully this video helps you get just a little bit closer. Just a little bit closer to winning your fantasy football championship in 2025. Hopefully I'll see you guys again. No, hopefully you guys will see me again real soon. And until then, y'all have a blessed day. Bye.